thumbs up when we are ready to
Yeah.
start.
I can share screen, right, when I start.
Yeah, when I'll introduce you, ma'am, first, and then you
Yeah.
start sharing this.
All right. Fine.
Okay. So a very good afternoon to all of you. Um, this is the last session of the 5-day FDP program. And today we have with us is Ms. Sreedevi Raghavan. Let me take this opportunity to introduce her. Ms. Sreedevi is a seasoned management professional with a variety of backgrounds spanning over banking, courier, real estate, and automobile industries. Over 2 decades of work experience in the banking and financial service industry. Her longest stint has been with HDFC Bank. She has recently transitioned from the role of Senior Vice President of Retail Branch Banking to take up coaching as a profession. She is an alumnus of IIM Kozhikode. She is currently serving on the board of governors as well. So, through her vast experience in the sales and service industry, Ms. Sreedevi firmly believes that the greatest resource of any company is its people. Very early in her career, she forged a passion for nurturing and coaching young leaders. She has developed team from inception and had an enriched experience of leading and facilitating delivery amongst multifunctional teams. This has given her a considerable exposure in all the client-facing roles, be it marketing and branding communications, marketing analytics, product positioning methods, and her learning about human resource has came from these very roles. She says that any company is only as good as its people, and people need to be inspired to give their best. This drew her exposure to coaching as a profession, and she is currently an organizational development coach, a life coach, and now a Heal Your Life licensed workshop leader. So currently, she is working as a director and CEO and founded Tattvamassi. So, ma'am, we welcome you to this program. And this is our official second interaction of yours with Parul University team. Last time I still remember when we have organized Vadodara Startup Festival, wherein you spent 2 days of entirely during the event, right from the inaugural ceremony till the valedictory function. So we are very grateful to you for all your contribution to our ecosystem. I hope this interaction remains in future and you contributes to our youngsters and try to help us. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Jay and Ajay. It's always a pleasure for me to. Thank you so much, Jay and Ajay, once again. It's always been a privilege to interact with the staff and students of Parul University, and I'm pleasantly reminded of the startup convention that we had. I thoroughly enjoyed myself for those 2 days. It was like going back to college days myself. And in fact, and a very good evening to all of you who have logged in. This is fantastic participation. But before I start, there is something that I want to say, and I think it is very important to say something like this, especially in the times that we are going through. I understand that this is a faculty development program, okay? And I am amazed at the attitude which the teachers and the teaching faculty of our country has brought to the fore, especially in these Corona times. I'm a mother of 2 girls. One is in college, the other one is still in school. My mother has been a teacher herself, and I have always, as a child, witnessed the kind of work that a teacher has to do even after she comes back from school. So I've always seen my mother sitting and correcting papers till 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock in the night. But students just see them screaming and yelling in the classes, from that 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock. But I'm aware of the kind of hard work that teachers and professors put in. Even now, when I see the way that this entire education ecosystem has come together to ensure that there is seamless delivery to students, I am absolutely amazed. I mean, this is fantastic work, and since the audience comprises of professors. My deep, deep respects to you. And this is my way of saying thank you. Now I'll come to the subject of the whole talk. When Jay approached me, I think it was about a month back, Jay, when we spoke. Incidentally, on that day, this was after we came back from the Vadodara startup, the carnival which we had. I had about 2-3 startup students, or maybe they were still they were toying with the idea of what to do. And then there is something that struck me, and that is that all of them had excellent ideas. But somewhere when I asked them that what is your go-to-market strategy, and what we call in the typical MBA language as GTM, I realized that some of us are so fond of our ideas, and some of us are so stuck with our ideas, that the whole prospect of wanting to go to the market to sell the product, ultimately, the fact that your product has to be ultimately used, is going away from the mind altogether. Now, why is it important, especially I am cognizant of the fact that many of you are listening in, because what Jay explained to me is that many of you are professors who would later on be taking classes for these students, and who would also later on serve as a guide for startup ideas, startup ecosystems. I think it is very important, especially to bring in that thought process amongst our students, that the product is wasted without a customer. Your ideas are all brilliant, but there are multitude of ideas which has probably not seen the face of the earth because there was no taker as a customer. So I'm going to now share screen. I've put across a very simple presentation for you. I am aware that this is the last session of the entire, I think, was it a 10-day or 13-day convention that you've had? So most of it would have been covered by many people. I was also logging in many times and listening to some of the live sessions through Facebook. And it's not like, so I've heard many people touch upon this subject. So this could probably be a refresher for all of you. While I'm at this, Jay, tell me what you'd like me to do. Do you want me to take the questions as they come, or can we have a 10-minute in the end to start taking the questions, 10 to 15 minutes?
I think let us keep it 10 to 15 minutes at the end, so that to maintain the continuity of what you are talking.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. So are you able to see my slide, Jay?
Yeah, we are able to see it. Yes.
Okay. I have 2 participants who've raised hands, so I would request you, I hope this is not something to do with the slide, because if these are questions, then we will take them after, during the question hour.
Yes.
Is that fine?
Yeah, it's fine, ma'am.
Great. Okay. Okay. So we kind of thought of this topic called "Who is your customer?" Because I'm aware that today, especially, the ideation is happening very, very well. There is no doubt about the fact that as a country, we've become a very creative country, and the fact that we have actually started encouraging our students to go there and become entrepreneurs, which is not the generation which I came from, or which is probably not the generation which even Jay has come up. Because all that we were told when we were coming out of our MBA schools or even colleges was that try and get very good grades and then come out. And of course, in those days, we did not have placements. These days, we have placements in all the MBA schools and colleges. However, what was told to us was to go and find a job, because that was the most safe thing to do. Because someone employed you and someone gave you a standard salary, and from there you just build your dreams and go on with your life goals. But it is fantastic that today we have an entire ecosystem coming together to encourage new brains, new minds, fresh minds to think and to be able to start their own entrepreneurial ventures. Now, the ideation is all great, and you've had many sessions where you have listened on how to ideate. I even listened into a session which you just had on intellectual property rights, as to how can you ring fence your idea and so on. But for you to understand that the whole purpose of you doing this is because your product or your service or your very idea has to be of use to somebody else too. Okay. So that is why we decided on this topic on who is your customer. Now, coming to who is your customer, the standard definition that we have is if I have a product, then somebody's got to buy it. So the buyer of my product is my customer. Now, is that the only definition, or can we think a little further? Let's say you are running a non-profit organization. So I've just put in 2-3 scenarios over here. This is not the be all and end all to who should be your customer, but then from the buyer of your product, someone who wants to invest in your product is also your customer. So from a startup world, your venture capitalists, your angel investors, people like Parul University, people like IIT Madras who are running a special cell for startups, like the 100 Open Startup community that is now coming up. Anybody who is going to invest in your idea is today becoming your customer. Now, anyone who is even internal, so let's say you are a larger kind of a setup. So you are, let's say, a training department in your own organization. So here I'm not just speaking from the context of a startup. I'm speaking the context of a service that you are delivering. Now, let's say you are the training department in a large organization. Then everybody inside the organization itself is your customer. And you will have to cater to that. Now, the next thing is, remember, everyone is not your customer. Why do I say that? I say this because especially I have seen a lot of young, the young entrepreneurs who talk to me. And since I'm a business coach, I end up speaking at least to 1 or 2 people in a week who's got a new idea. When they come up and say, this is my idea, we've got a brilliant idea, we want to implement this, this is what I'm going to do. And so when I tell them who is going to use this, they say anybody can. Now, anybody can is a very dangerous way to put your product out. And why? We will deep dive into it one by one to understand how it is a little bit of a risk that you're taking. Not a little bit, it's a huge risk that you're taking when you don't end up defining your customer. Now, I'm just going to go back slightly to this line once more. And like I said, I'm aware of the fact that the people who are listening in are all professors and faculty who could be taking classes as well as guiding young entrepreneurs in future. So this is something that I would urge you that you please leave it as a message with your students, that everyone is not your customer. It is very important in your journey, in your entrepreneurial journey or in your business journey, that you end up defining customer. Not end up is again not what I want to say. I take that back. That you start with defining your customer. Your product actually has to evolve with you starting to define who your customer is. Why do I need to have a customer? And this is something that I have, kind of quote unquote Peter Drucker. Because the purpose of business is to create a customer. The business enterprise has 2 and only 2 basic functions: marketing and innovation. Marketing and innovation produce results, all the rest are costs. Marketing is the distinguishing, unique function of the business. So marketing of your product is the actual unique function of your business. So if marketing of your product is the unique function of your business, then what you need to first understand is to know where are you going to go and market this. And if you know where you're going, where you should be marketing it, for you to even gather that knowledge on where you should be marketing it, what you first need to know is, who is my customer? Citing your customer. So where do we meet this guy or this girl who we keep talking about, customer? And for that, what we need to understand is if you have a product, in management jargon, this is also called as the primary customer and the secondary customer. But I've just put it in a very simple graph over here so that all of us understand this. When you have a product, you have somebody who uses the product, and you could have someone very different who's buying the product. I'm not looking at the chat right now, but then I'm assuming that many of you understand what I mean by something like this. I'm just going to take some of that. Okay. Now, a biggest example I can give for the chart that I have just put up is children's items. Now, if you look at products that we make for newborn babies or for children until they are at least about 18, please understand that it is a child who's going to use the product. So if you're going to make a diaper for a child, if you are going to make some kind of eco-friendly diapers, let's say, or skin sensitive, skin friendly diaper, then please understand that the person who's using that product is going to be a child. So it's very important that you identify your customer as the child who's going to use it, and therefore the features of your product are going to be based on that child. Okay, but the person who's going to buy your diaper is going to be the parent. So all your marketing strategies and all your pricing strategies will have to be woven around this parent who's going to buy it. So you may make a fantastic diaper, since diaper came to me as an example right now. You may be making a fantastic skin friendly diaper, and there could be a particular pricing point for that. Now you will also have to try and see if that pricing point fits the community that you're trying to target. Is the pricing too low? Because then even if your product is very good, and a certain kind of customer may hesitate a bit to buy it because they may think that this is a little too cheap. So is the diaper good enough or not? On the contrary, let's say you make a very good diaper. It is a very ideal one for the summer season. The baby is not going to have rashes and sores. But then let's say the pricing point is too high and you're trying to take it to a market where people are not so affluent. You will realize that despite you having one of the best products that you could bring out for the child, there are no takers. I'm going to take this one question from Duray, and let me see if this fits in right now. For an FMCG or a textile industry, everyone is a customer, is what I believe. Can you explain and why not? Duray, excellent question. I'm coming to it maybe in another 2 or 3 slides. And I will tell you why even in an FMCG or a textile industry, everyone is not a customer. Thank you for asking that. Okay, we will move on. Okay. So what is this relationship between the, yeah. So what is this relationship between the customer and you? Now, I'm very conscious of the fact that I have used the word symbiotic. Please understand that the more than the customer needing you, it is you who need the customer. And as much as you need the customer also needs you desperately in sometimes. What is it? Sometimes you could be alleviating a pain point of a customer. Okay. Now, the very, what should I say, the very times that we are seeing, which is the Corona times, there was an unprecedented demand for ventilators, for masks, and for hand sanitizers. It wasn't just a need. It wasn't just something that people wanted at some point in time. It had become a desperate requirement, and the desperate requirement is nothing but a pain. So it's the immediate pain point that you're addressing, that you have to bring your product out and start identifying the kind of customers who need it. The second is a need. Okay, so for somebody who is probably who is actually well, who's sitting back at home, it may not be a pain, but it is still a need. You supplying masks and you supplying the hand sanitizers is actually a need for me. Okay, without it, nothing's going to happen to me as long as I don't step out of my house. But it's still a good thing that you could bring up. I remember the time when we were trying to wean out plastics, especially in Bangalore. I've stayed for at least about 15 years now in Bangalore. So I remember the time when we had to wean out of plastics. A lot of people came up with cloth bags. So a lot of unused cloth which was lying around in houses. You had a lot of seamstresses, a lot of local tailors who came together and started making cloth bags and distributing it in small kirana shops. I'm not talking about the major supermarkets which came up with cloth bags. I'm talking about the small sabzi mandis that came. They started supplying cloth bags. So it wasn't a pain, but it was actually a need. And it takes a little bit of your common sense and intelligence to understand where is there a pain, because in case of a pain, your production itself can increase to a large proportion. In case of a need, your production can slowly increase and fulfill the need. Simplify again, I am probably not able to take an example, but yeah, the biggest example of simplification is your escalators and elevators. Why not? You have these dispensers which has now come, for your hand sanitizers. You see those dispensers which is placed everywhere, where you press the pedal with your foot, and then the sanitizer is pushed out to your hands. So that was one of the products where you identified a customer, and mostly in wholesale kind of areas. So you identified the customer, which is a mall, or which is a apartment association, or which is a open kind of a market space where somebody could come and use it. Delight. I have an absolutely beautiful story, and I love sharing this story, wherever I can, in whatever context that I can. And this is a story of somebody whom all of us as a country we love, and this is a story of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. So many years back, I'm not able to exactly recall the year, Dr. Kalam was heading DRDL in Hyderabad. Okay? He was in charge, and he was heading the department where they were making Agni missile. And Dr. Kalam is actually a specialist for creating composite material. In his own words, he says that some of the reasons why people engaged him in projects is because he's a specialist in creating composite material. So he was creating this material called carbon. This is a lovely story, and I just want you to probably just sit back and listen to the story. So he was creating this material called carbon because when the missile, it had to enter into the orbit, it had to carry things inside the missile which had to be kept in room temperature. So mano, your typical 23 to 30 degree kind of room temperature. However, when the missile is traveling, it has to face temperatures up to 4,500 degrees Celsius. So they had to create a material which will be able to take this kind of a heat and yet not pass the heat on, and keep all the materials that had to be taken into space safe inside. Now, I'm not, I'm not a rocket scientist, so I can only explain this to you in very layman terms. I would not know the scientific terminologies of this. But the fact is, he made something which was a composite material, which also had to be very light, because he could not make something which is very heavy, because that would increase the weight of the missile. And they had to have an optimum weight for the missile to be shot into the space. Now, he had a friend, his name was Professor B.N. Prasad. Professor B.N. Prasad was in the Nizamuddin Institute of Medical Sciences, NIMS, NIMS, in Hyderabad. So once apparently Professor Prasad came to visit Dr. Kalam, and Dr. Kalam was showing him this work and said that he has actually developed this composite material which weighed about 300 grams. So such a thin material which he had made, which was, I'm sure, was a scientific wonder that he has done, like many other wonders which he has done. So Professor Prasad told him that, what's the purpose of you doing this? You will use this one time in a missile, and then where will you put this to use again? So it this didn't actually strike him. He said, what would you like me to do? He said, please come along with me. There is something that I want to show you. So he took Professor Prasad, took Dr. Abdul Kalam to the orthopedic wing of NIMS. He showed him these little children who were polio infected. Okay? So as such, they have a huge challenge with their legs. Now, the calipers which they were using at that time, you've seen these children who are infected with polio using those calipers. Those calipers which they were using at that time weighed about 4 kilos. Now, you can imagine that as such, they have a challenge with their legs. And on top of that, they had to put on calipers which weigh 4 kilos. So he said, can you do something for them? And when Dr. Kalam went into the room, what he also saw is that none of the children were actually putting it on. They were removing it and keeping it because the whole thought of putting it on itself was becoming very painful for them. He took it up as a challenge. He went back and he made those calipers. Now, when he made it and he came back and he put it on for these children, he says, the joy that I saw, that when they didn't have to wear something for 4 kilos and they had to wear something which then only weighed 300 grams, when they went hopping and skipping and jumping, was much, much more and unparalleled to the joy that I had when I had actually launched the missile. Now, this is the biggest example that I can give you for delight. Amazing delight. So when you are creating a product, you may have created that product with just one segment of the customer in mind. But a product can always evolve, or even if that product doesn't evolve, your customer catchment can keep evolving only if you will put a little bit of creativity to this. Priyanka Gupta, I see you writing, never heard of this term. Can you please elaborate on which term are you telling me that you've not heard of? I'm going to continue. So this was my biggest example of creating customer delight. Okay. And the cost also was that earlier they were paying around 3,500 rupees to 4,000 rupees for a caliper. And with this carbon material caliper that Dr. Kalam had created, they only had to pay 500 rupees for the whole caliper set. So that's when you create delight. And even today, those calipers are what is being used. And the missile has been shot. It's gone wherever that it had to gone. Symbiotic relationship. Okay, Priyanka. Yeah. So symbiotic relationship is actually a very biological term, especially when we talk about parasitic relationships, when we talk about saprophytic relationships, and then we talk about symbiotic relationships. Pardon me, I am actually a student of zoology. So I tend to bring in some bit of zoology whenever I'm trying to give a lecture. So symbiotic relationship is when two people are able to equally benefit from the relationship. Okay. So now coming to what else is it that you and your customer can come together in a symbiotic relationship? And that's where I come to Duray Jaikar's question on psychographics. So if you are in a textile industry, Duray, if you have to sell saris, then you cannot be selling it in Amsterdam. You can sell it mostly in India. So psychographic is a psychographic mapping of customers is one of the most important mapping that you have to do when you're trying to identify a customer, because especially in a country like this, and you are all, and if we are all trying to mentor and motivate startups in India, which is meant for Indian customers, then it is very, very important that you try and understand what is the culture, what is the belief systems that you have in each of the cultures, and then introduce products which is able to cater to the culture and the belief systems. And the last but not the least is that times like these. So keep identifying your customer in different times. And I'll give you an example of why I'm saying that. I was in a webinar organized by iHub even earlier when I did take this example. So if any of you were listening into that, you may have heard me mention, but if you've not, for the benefit of many of us who may not have been in that webinar, I'm going to say this again. There is a client of mine who's actually into manufacturing of e-stubs, actually eco-friendly stubs. Pardon me one second. So she's manufacturing eco-friendly stuffs. Earlier, before the lockdown and before pre-COVID times, what she was doing was she was actually going into villages, into the rural geographies, and selling the stuff. But however, when the lockdown happened and we didn't have a way of going out, she didn't have a way of traveling. And when she approached me saying, okay, now what do we do? Because the cash flow has completely reduced. There is absolutely no sale of products. I did mention something else also in the webinar, which said about how two people came together and worked together, two businesses, but that's not what I'm going to say here. What I'm going to say here is we tried to completely change her customer segment. I said, in a time like this, where in the next 6 months, you will not be able to go into the deeper geographies of India, how do you think you can still sell it sitting where you're sitting in Bangalore? So, the kind of people we identified Grameen banks. We identified, banks like Janlakshmi Financials and all other small finance banks, which actually has a customer base, which has the urban poor, and the fact that these banks will be able to transport this product, keep it in their bank branches, and do some sort of a sale over there for us. We identified that a lot of maids and drivers come in for work into resident welfare associations. So we said, why do we have to go to a village and then keep up the stove over there? Why can't we do it in resident welfare associations? Why can't we have a display over there so that the owners and the employers can then buy the stove for people like them? So it took a time like this for us to completely change our belief system that when I have to make an eco-friendly stove, I can only go into the village. We realize it is a huge market that I have in the city itself. Okay. I'm moving on to the next slide. Now I'm coming to, I'm now going to request you that if you, the next few slides, if you really want to take a picture, or I'm even ready to share this, these parts of the presentation with Jay. This is how, we train ourselves when we start our own business, when we sit as business coaches. So Jay also told you that I'm a business coach. I'm a certified organizational development coach. So the first thing when I sit with a business client and when they're telling me that they're having a problem in able to expand their business, this is one of the first exercises that I undertake with them. Identifying your customer requires that you first identify the whole marketplace and then zero in on an ideal customer profile to pursue. And I'll tell you why this is very important to do. So who is your target audience? So let's say you have a product, then you have a large target audience. So if you look at the pyramid, it's the base of the pyramid. It's really large and you have a huge target audience. So let's take an example of ikat sari. Okay. So a target audience would be somebody like India, because we're talking about a sari, and therefore all of India, a sari can be sold. Now, who are your potential customers? Your potential customers. Now, I am okay if somebody wants to start writing in the chat, and if you have understood my previous slides, then you will start putting down potential customers there for me. I'm going to wait for a minute to see if you can put down who are the potential customers for a sari. Okay, as it comes up, now please remember what we discussed in the initial side. We said customers are not just those who use your products. Customers are also those who are buying their products. So I know typically we tend to say, when you say potential customers, you'll say a woman who wears a sari, but do think that a lot of men gift saris too to women in their lives. So a potential customer is not just a lady, a potential customer is also a man, a potential customer is also a child who wants to gift, saris to anybody. Then you come to an ideal customer profile. So when I specifically said that I'm making an ikat sari, then you have to try and identify an ideal customer profile of who would be wearing an ikat sari. Is it just in Orissa? Can I also sell it in Bangalore? If I have to sell it in Bangalore, then which is the kind of shop that I have to sell it in Bangalore? Who are the people who are open to wearing all kinds of designs of saris? And then you come to something called as a customer, which is what we call as a persona. In the MBA language, we call this as a customer persona. Okay. So this journey is what you will have to primarily undertake compulsorily if you are going to start your business. Having an idea without doing this slide, especially, I would be a little candid and upfront in telling you that it would be a long journey for you if you didn't do this as long as you were as soon as you were designing your product. Let me look at your question. Is psychographic mapping is possible in public hospital where client may be poor and rich? Psychographic mapping it's not about a public hospital where clients are poor and rich, but psychographic mapping has to do with cultures. A hospital is a very neutral place, Priyanka Kumar. So as of now, I do not think psychographic mapping is possible. Anyway, let me just try and think. Okay, that's a very good question. If I'm not able to find an answer to this by the end of the session, I'll certainly try and think through it after that. Okay. Now, this is the ideal customer profile template. I'm sorry, I did not expand that. And this is a B2C template. If it is possible, kindly take a screenshot of this presentation. I have absolutely no problems with that. So this is a very certified, or what should I say? This is a very prescribed way on how you should identify your ideal customer profile. I will guarantee you that if you do this process, the next 3 slides, if you are with me and if you do this process properly, and if you ensure that your students or even you, whoever is starting off on a startup journey, if you can do this process, not just in the first time, but from time to time, like I said, look at the times, look at whether your product is coming to the end of its life cycle. Look at whether your customer is coming to the end of a life cycle. If you want to keep restarting again and again and again, every time that you find that your funnel of customers is coming down, and this is something that we have actively practiced. I have been in sales for the last 15 years. I've been leading sales teams. Every time that we find that our lead funnel is drying up, we've always sat back and looked at this and said, fill it up again. Every time you fill up, you will have a new list of 50 customers. And then you start all over again. So what are we looking at? We are looking at the demographics. What is the gender? Does your customer have a gender? If applicable, maybe your customer does not have a gender. What is the age range? So especially somebody who asked me about textile industry. So this is what I was talking about. In a textile industry, specifically, you have to do this because you must know the age range. It is not for one and for all. In fact, textile industry is one of the industries where you must keep doing your ideal customer profile again and again and again, because fashion is one of the most rapidly changing phenomena. Income range, can they afford your product? And what is the income range of the client who's supposedly going to buy your product? What is his education and background? So you may have, let's say you are into a gaming technology. Let's say you have a startup where you are introducing games. Now your game could be wonderful with many, many layers and, many iterations to it, and very captive and, very interesting. But let's say it requires for the user to have a little bit of understanding and knowledge to load it and to use it. then if they don't have a certain education or background, then there is no point in going and selling it in a place like that. Profession, this does not require too much of an explanation. So whatever that you're selling has also got to be catered to profession. What is a health status? So are you selling your product to someone? So let's say you're bringing up some kind of a technology for diabetic patients. There is no point in you going and advertising it, in schools, right? Or somewhere near schools or somewhere near a market. You will have to advertise for that in hospitals, in gyms, in dietitian centers, and that's where you will have to do it. Family status, because a lot of decisions on buying is taken depending on what you are in the family graph. Children, whether they have children, what would be the name, what would be the age of the children. See, today I understand that most of the things that I buy in my house has been changing over time as my children have been growing. A lot of things that I will buy in my house once my children have grown up and left my house is going to be different. Profession, what profession are they into? Industry, which industry are they in? Job type and social affiliation. So this is the demographics that you basically need to have to what we call as pen sketch your customer. Okay, please remember this word. You can't draw your customer out. So you've got to pen sketch your customer. If you have to pen sketch your customer, so keep your product in one hand, keep imagining who is going to be using this product, and then write down in your imagination who is the person who comes up in all this. Now, the next thing is personal characteristics. So what we did over there was demographics. Now, what we are going to do is personal characteristics. What are his traits? What are his talents? What is her special skills and abilities? What is her interest? What passion does he have? What is the belief? What is the value? Why do I say all this? Because let's say there is someone who's very talented in dancing, then the kind of clothes that they buy or the kind of software that they use will be very different from someone who is into bungee jumping. Because that person may want a even when it comes to sports gear. If you go into a decathlon, and I'm sure you have decathlon in all your cities. If you go into a decathlon, do you see how they have completely assorted sportswear? I mean, my understanding of sportswear, maybe even 5 years back, was to have a t-shirt and a pair of track pants if you were a lady, or you could have a pair of shorts if you are a man, and track pants. And then, okay, you had two basic type of shoes. One was ladies ka shoe, one was gents ka shoe, and one is kids ka shoe. But have you gone into Decathlon and seen how there is a variety of sports gear, sportswear, which is available if you're a cyclist, if you're a swimmer, if you are a biker, if you are a trekker. Now that's how you evolve. Now, the moment I'm a cyclist and then I see an assortment in a shop that says cyclist, then it's also a little bit of feeding into my ego, because then I want to go into that section and buy clothes from there. Again, I'm coming back to the gentleman who asked me the question on textile. So here's how, when you're doing textiles, if you were to look into the personal passions, beliefs, and interests of a customer, the whole market can change for you. Your whole sales can grow in your graph if you can sit back and do this personal characteristics. And then the geography, where does your customer live? So maybe it is very easy to do this in a Bangalore kind of a market. It may not be very easy to do something like this in a Belgaum kind of a market. I'm making a judgment here, pardon me. But it's very easy for you to go a little more detailed in a Bangalore kind of a market, but you don't have to go into so much details if you're going to tier 2, tier 3 kind of cities. Thank you, Padma. Okay. Now this is the business to business. So what I earlier showed you was a business to customer. Now let's say your business is or your product is something that you're going to sell to business houses. Then this is the basic sketch that you have to do. What is the annual revenue of your business? How many number of employees do they have? How many years in business? What is the title and role of the product that you're going to go and offer? Whom to? who are you going to go and offer this to? Sales circle, matlab wo business jo hai, where is that business going and selling? And then the geographical location of the business, right? Now, this is the last but not the least, and I do see that there are a lot of raised hands, so I'll try and be a little quick about it. Why should I identify a customer? What is the benefits of identifying a customer? A, your customer acquisition cost will be reduced. So ऐसे नहीं कि हमने एक product बना लिया, हमें पता नहीं है कहाँ जाके इसको बेचना है, and we kind of went and put it out in the market, or we told Amazon. So in fact, a very young boy that I was speaking to, this whole concept of me coming up with a title like this when Jay called me was because I had just finished speaking to him, and then when I asked him, he was making a product for the education industry, and when I asked him, where will you sell this? He said, I don't know, I'm ready with my product, anybody can buy it. So I said, how will you reach somebody who has to buy it? And that's when he started thinking about it. So that's the whole point that I'm trying to make. As soon as you have a product, you've got to sell it, which means you have to go there and buy a customer from there. Okay. Now, there is a cost of acquisition of the customer. If you can do this ideal customer profiling, then your customer acquisition cost will considerably come down because you know by now where you have to go and sell it. So your cost of trying to reach your ideal customer's ecosystem completely comes down. Creates a customer lifetime value. The example that I told you about making that carbon element for an Agni missile versus making for patients infected with polio. Now you have created a lifetime value for that. In the first instance, there was just one lifetime value for it. But in the next instance, there is multiples and millions and crores of lifetime value that you can bring in. So if you can sit with your product for some time and imagine who all can be benefited by this, then what you're creating is a customer lifetime value. Aapka product jo hai, wo immortal ho jayega. See, that is the whole purpose of you spending so much time in ideation. The third thing is customer get customer. If you are a person, if you able to sell your product to a good customer who sees the benefit. Remember that slide where we said that, if you can alleviate his pain, if you can satisfy his need, if you can create some kind of a delight in the customer's requirement, if you have catered to him in a time when he needed it, he will get the next customer. So all of us who bought masks in this season, you all know it. आपके कोई friend ने, somebody must have identified one person who's making the mask, and then the moment you saw it, you bought 5 masks for your house, and then you referred it to somebody else and referred it to somebody else. So that is exactly how businesses get sold. So this is something that I had covered even when I took that session, Jay and Ajay, I'm sure you'll remember, for the Vadodara Startup Convention also. Why do I need a customer? I need a customer because, first of all, I need something called as a paying customer. It is not going to be of any use to me because my product and my idea, remember, your idea is the biggest cost. Your customer is your profit. So as long as you're sitting with an idea, you're sitting with a cost. The moment you get a customer is when you start making profit. And you can only make a profit when you start getting a paid customer. Because what happens when you get a paid customer is you start making gross margins. You have the cost price of the product, you have the selling price of the product. Ye hame third standard, fourth standard mein we get to learn this. So only when you have a customer who's paying you a selling price more than the cost price have you got into business. And when you have something like that, and when these two wheels start going together, then what you have is customer referrals, and then your business keeps growing. So as of now, I'm going to pause over here and I'm going to start taking questions. I think I am on the dot of 4:40. Am I right? Jay, one of you? Yes.
Yes.
I have exactly 10 minutes.
Okay. Fine. So let us, ma'am, take some questions that we have in the chat box.
Sure.
Maybe you can just stop sharing your screen so that everybody can.
I can. Okay, I'll just stop sharing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, firstly, I would like to ask you a couple of questions, and then I will take on the questions of the
Please.
audience because
Yeah, sure.
uh, you yourself is serving to the startup community since so long. I just would like to know that what typical mistakes that a student from an academic institutions where they are right currently they are undergoing their academic curriculum. So, what typical mistakes they do make in their startups that you have came across?
I wouldn't call them mistakes to start with because I'm in, like I said, even in the beginning of the program, I'm in awe of these students who have the courage to start thinking of starting their own business at a very young age. However, because of their age and because they lack in experience, a couple of things where the journey can take very long, and what we are trying to do is shorten the journey for them by helping them, is I see them getting very carried away with their idea. A lot of time is spent in ideation, but an idea is only worth it if you are also going to execute it. Or execute करने के लिए you have to try to sell the idea. So the selling pitch of the product is not perfected by them. If they can perfect कि ये, who are you going to go and sell this to? Who is going to be your customer? So I'm coming back to this point only. If they can identify their customer along with the product, then the game is starting right. Number two, what what they do at a later stage is, there is a hurry to try and get investors. But please understand that somebody will invest in you. Invest ka matlab kya hai? That I start trusting you. So when I trust you, I give you something from my pocket. Correct?
Yes.
Now, if I have to trust you, then I have to see your plan work. So you need to have a couple of customers in your kitty. So for a start, maybe that is not even a paying customer. My last slide, I can even pause it for some time and say, chalo, you don't get a paying customer for now. But you need to have put it to use with somebody and then go to the investor and show them as to how it has benefited so much. So these are two big things that I would like people to pay attention.
Yeah. So last time when Bharat sir was there with us, firstly I would like to thank him, in fact, because he was the one
Yes,
to get us connected each other. Yeah,
absolutely. I keep thanking him all the time.
yeah. So last time when we were discussing, he said, as per his opinion, and we all know about it, that out of 100 startups that are failing, almost 70 or 75% of startups they are failing because they are unable to identify the real need of the customers. So as you rightly say
Right.
that identifying the customer is really important as for whatever they have developed. So
Yes.
we have another question from Professor Drumil. He's asking that can ideal customer of any company can break their loyalty as per the market environment, like low prices or negative marketing for any particular product?
The customer is the king or the queen. The customer is got every choice to keep moving away from you. So that is something that we have to be cognizant of. And that's why I said that any time that you find that your customer funnel or your lead funnel is drying up, keep going back to the ICP template and keep drawing new sets of customers. Customer loyalty can only come up, and somebody has also asked a very valid question. In fact, that is the answer. How important is customer service or post customer, post sale service to a customer? That is the only thing that will ensure that customer loyalty is alive. But otherwise, a customer can always move. That's not in our hands at all.
Yeah, ma'am, you have been into the board of IIM, so just would like to know from you that how do you see the changing mindset of the students? Because in all the previous sessions, our faculty fraternity have asked the experts that we also
Mm-hmm.
believe that people should start their ventures and being in academic
Yes,
institutions. तो जो
yes,
mindset बच्चों
yes,
का होता है,
yes.
it plays a really crucial role. तो
हाँ,
कैसे इस चीज को
हाँ.
motivate किया जाए?
So इस चीज को आप लोग ऐसे मोटिवेट करना होगा आपको कि प्लीज ट्राई एंड ब्रिंग इन अ करिकुलम फॉर स्किल डेवलपमेंट and make job ready students. That's very important. Somewhere we will have to start developing curriculums called window to the world, because throughout their education journey that starts from kindergarten to primary school, mid school and high school, and then post graduation and graduation, please understand that it is we who have put these students inside a framework. We have put them in a closed room. And we are teaching them out of textbooks and out of our experiences. So it's more of saying, okay, what have I seen in my world? But what we both need to now do, which is faculty and students, is we will have to open window to the world, and we will have to now see that together. It requires a lot of, what should I say, magnanimity, even on the part of the professors, to say that the world is changing today, and these students are going to step into that world. So we have to prepare the students for that world, which would mean that we start bringing in industry experts as a method of curriculum, exactly what you're doing. So kudos to you for thinking literally out of the box, or out of the window, if I could say. The only way you can make them job ready, whether it is entrepreneurship or whether they're going into a corporate world, is by ensuring that in the last semester of their education, when they are just ready to go out, you bring in industry experts to come in and talk to them,
Yes.
so that the transition is smooth. ऐसा नहीं कि they go out and they get one jhatka कि, oh, this is what the world is. And one big thing that I would like to add over here is, Jay, I am, in fact, when I do my coaching, when I do my life coaching sessions, I'm actually an energy coach. So I do a lot of coaching on energy consciousness,
Okay.
because I don't believe in people management. I believe in personality management. And this is where most of the young children will get confused, because when they go into the world, all that they have been exposed to until then is their parents or their professors, and everybody is nice to them. When they go into the world where they find that not everybody is nice to them, they get confused, and then they don't know how to take the idea forward. So, teaching them soft skills and teaching them personality management is what is going to be the differentiator in making them successful.
Correct. So, as you said, that bringing in industry experts to academia will actually help students to change their mindset and get more
Absolutely.
exposure. Yeah, get more exposure to the actual scenario in the industrial sector. One more question from my side. How,
Yeah,
because you are based in Bangalore, and we all know that Bangalore is now considered as Silicon Valley of India. So,
right.
how do you see that? Is it really a fact that starting a startup in Bangalore is way easier than other part of the country? And how do you think that other part of the country could progress?
So I am, what should I say? Like I said, I'm an energy enthusiast. Okay, so I believe that energy can be created anywhere. It has so happened that the ecosystem came together in Bangalore, because Bangalore was also the IT capital.
Okay,
But today, the world is also moving away from IT capital, and we are going back to looking at agriculture and manufacturing once again. So, if Make in India concept is going to become a reality, and if people are working towards it, then I believe that these ecosystems can be created anywhere. For example, Gujarat's biggest strength is your pharma industry. You can create, and what is the world looking at today? The world actually wants innovations in the pharmaceutical industry. It's been 6 months down the line, and we don't have a cure for COVID-19. And therefore, I think we have to start. That's why I said, you have to keep evolving in times like these, and say that even if I start an idea from here, then I can make a huge ecosystem wherever that I'm sitting in.
correct. Yeah, we have.
Shani
Yeah, we have.
Kadirve, what
Yes,
is the
he's asking a
difference
very good
between
question.
people management and personality management? Thank you for asking me. I do a complete coaching session around it, and if I have to answer it in one sentence, it would be difficult. But let me tell you this: people management is when you classify a role or a grade, but personality is when you classify the behavior of the person. So you could have. If you typically have in an organization someone who's a junior employee, middle employee, senior employee, that is what you do as in people management. But in personality management, what we try and coach the employee is to say, uh, who is an angry person, who is a sad person, who is a fearful person, and how do you deal with personalities over there. That's a very different topic, and I don't want to marry these two right now.
Okay,
But I want
ma'am.
to take a session someday.
No, we'll definitely call you for one. We'll invite you for one of the sessions on the same detailed session. Okay, we have a last question, ma'am, from
Sure.
Sachin, Professor Sachin. He's asking that what is a typical market research tool that one should adopt to gain the insights of the market acceptability of the product and idea that they're developing. So concepts and
Okay.
tools.
Okay. So market research method. Okay. I may not have any tips to give you as of now. Let me be honest. I will of course, I will of course give you answers from that. But there are lots of platforms available, even if you go into the net and if you want to look at it. Lots and lots of platforms that you can pick up from the net. So even if I am trying to do a research, and the best thing is to leave it to the digital marketing agencies who can do this because they do a thorough job of it.
Okay. So
and to AI and analytics will be able to do it for you.
Okay, Sreedevi ma'am, I think questions will keep on posting, and it's already
yes
5:02.
Yeah.
I know you are busy with your own schedule, so thank you very much for joining with us on this platform. And we are very much fortunate to have you, and hopefully in near future we will be keeping the relationship maintained, and will benefit our students as well from your guidance.
So I will just share this last slide which I have.
Okay.
And is no, so this is just it in case anybody wants to reach out to me. If you give me the reference of Parul University, and this, if you tag me with this, then you can write to me on my website. I have a website there, and there is an email through which you can reach me in case you have any questions.
Yes. So thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much. It's always been a pleasure.
Yeah. I will share the details with the participants as well of yours, contact details and all, so that they can reach up to you whenever they would like to do for some projects.
Thank you, and happy finding customers to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So I'm thankful to all the participants as well for being with us for a 5-day long FDP. And hopefully we did justice to your time that you spent in with us for these 5 days. And I hope you will, whatever you have learned so far in this FDP program, you will pass it on to your students and will motivate more and more students to get involved and get into the track of innovation and startups, which ultimately will lead on to the mission of our Honorable Prime Minister about Atmanirbhar Bharat. And our role as professors is really important nowadays, particularly looking at the economic growth of the country. So hopefully all of you will contribute, and will stay in touch in future as well. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Ma'am, thank you. Sir.